What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've been talking quite a bit about acquisitions, specifically Microsoft and Activision Blizzard, but Sony has also been making their own moves, and yesterday they announced another interesting studio acquisition that we'll go over here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Capcom and how they shadow dropped a pretty awesome demo to check out, and even a bunch of information around their next big release. And we'll also be taking a look at some gameplay footage that was shared that exploded online because people are genuinely having a hard time discerning between it and real life. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps that a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with the Nintendo Switch and a sale that went live alongside of that Indie World Showcase. And I wanted to quickly go over it here because there's some pretty good games that are marked down, which we can see this over on the Nintendo sales and deals page. This is their April indie sale. It will be live through April 26th. So not too long, less than a week here, but when you start looking down the list of games, Shredder's Revenge is on sale. It's 20% off, but I mean, $20 for that game is pretty good. Hades, half off, $12.49. Slay the Spire is 60% off. That's at $10. Celeste, 75% off at $5. Hollow Knight, which you've probably been hearing a lot about, Silk Song. There's Hollow Knight for $7.50. I also noticed that Temtem is on here, which I do tend to forget that that is an indie title technically, but there it is, 20% off at $51.99 for the deluxe edition. But then, hey, look, right next to it, Windjammers 2 at $12.99. But definitely worth checking out for some of these indie games that maybe you just haven't been able to play yet. Good to see them on sale. And of course, leave some suggestions down in the comments for any hidden gems that may be in there. Also, we did have a new update that was announced for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which we've been on performance patch watch for these games since basically they released. And well, let's take a look. This is the newest patch that was put up over on Nintendo's website with the details. This is version 1.3.0, released on April 19th. And well, they have support for trainers who caught an egg instead of Walking Wake or Iron Leaves in the Terra Raid battles. They have feature adjustments, some bug fixes for Link battles and just battles, Pokemon Go connectivity, and I was hoping that I would scroll down to other and see something that mentions performance. And look, they normally wouldn't mention that, I am aware of that, but because Nintendo themselves have commented on this and it was such a big thing, I figured they would put something in there, but no. And in fact, this patch doesn't do anything really when it comes to performance, at least in any substantial way. Maybe in some areas it's smoothed out somewhat, but not enough for people to really notice or anything there. And people are starting to wonder, hey, when is this performance patch coming? Because we're getting to the end of April and this game came out like 5 months ago or something. So is that going to happen? I mean, they already sold a lot of copies, didn't they? I assume that they will have some sort of performance. It might not fix everything, but just something before the big DLC drops. But who knows? Maybe that performance patch is really just the next Nintendo hardware through backwards compatibility. Oh, and Lego fans out there as well as Sonic fans, it looks like there's some new stuff to check out, which there's an entire trailer for it here. And yeah, there's 4 new Sonic Lego sets. And one in particular I thought was kind of cool. It's called Sonic Speed Sphere Challenge, which was the big thing they focused on for the announced trailer, where you build a course and actually send Sonic speeding through it to try to mimic the entire concept of the video game itself. But 4 different sets here, and they will be dropping starting August 1st, ranging anywhere in price from $35 to $50. So exciting stuff there for fans of Legos or Sonic. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony. But before we get to their studio acquisition that they announced, let's talk about something else that people noticed, and that has to do with prices going up, which, it's something that Sony's been in the news for before, and now it looks like they're doing this on the PC side, but right now in just select territories, which we can see this posted up over on PlayStation Lifestyle, who was able to collect a lot of this information because it was certainly scattershot across the internet. You have to kind of be in the territory or region to notice it and they say, hey, the price went up, and then people started looking around through SteamDB as there are like price trends and data that you can look at, and you can see when things went up in price, which appears to have happened between April 14th and April 19th as it was going live in different regions sporadically as they went along. But that includes Argentina, Canada, Chile, China, Colombia, Japan, and South Korea as of now that have been confirmed. Again, PlayStation Lifestyle also was able to confirm these price jumps. And so far, the titles include Spider-Man Miles Morales, Days Gone, God of War, and others have noticed things like Sackboy. So this is interesting to see on the PC side specifically. As we know, Sony did raise the price of the hardware, which, yes, you have raw materials, parts, and different things that are going into it that were affected by the supply line and chain and all this stuff, but people were thinking that Sony would take the hit on it because you make the money on the software side. But as you can see, the chart here and list of different prices from PlayStation Lifestyle, it appears across these different regions that the prices increase anywhere from 10 to 15%. Now, Sony has not made any kind of comment on these prices at the time of this recording, and they very well could just put up a blog post after they get done raising prices in all of the places and markets they're trying to, because this is something that it's kind of a rollout for like a week or so. So maybe they're not done yet and we'll see prices jump elsewhere across the world. But they were pretty straightforward when they raised prices of the console. So on the PC side, this might be something they push out as a blog post. Probably on a Friday, actually maybe today. A Friday is usually a good time to just kind of drop bad news and just on the way out, right, for the weekend, so the press doesn't necessarily pick it up immediately. But in this case, we've seen analysts and others talk about prices going up across the board, and that would include the software side with games, which Sony technically already did to start the generation, going from 60 to 70, and I have wondered about their PC pricing in general. If they do get to a point where they want to do a day-and-day release because they have not attempted that $70 price on PC, will they do that? Will it just be $70 on PlayStation 5 and $70 on, say, Steam? Or will they stick with the $60 price point that they've done so far on Steam? Which the big thing there is, hey, people on PC have waited months and maybe even years at times, so they get a lower price. But what happens if it all comes out at the same time? Well, in this case, looking at the exchange rates, I guess it would be more on the analyst side who's saying prices go up because the exchange rate isn't necessarily making sense, as the overall value when you start exchanging between currencies is kind of coming farther apart and dropping on the US dollar side for Sony. So there we have it. I guess just in these certain regions it's gone up, but we'll see if Sony has to make any more drastic changes when it comes to pricing, especially on that PC side. Next up, let's talk about Sony's studio acquisition that they announced yesterday. It still kind of strikes me as odd overall with the strategy that they have right now. We, of course, have seen them do some fairly large acquisitions with Bungie that was over $3 billion, and for Sony, that's pretty hefty considering they'd bought Insomniac for what, $230 or $240 million. You jump up into the billions and people are starting to take notice. And they've also acquired studios that haven't released a game yet, like Haven with Jade Raymond. And now they've done that once again. We can see this posted up over on PlayStation Blog. This says, welcoming Firewalk Studios to the PlayStation Studios family. They, of course, have a little graphic up there with the PlayStation Studios logo next to Firewalk Studios. And this is a fairly new studio overall. I mean, they've been working on a game, apparently, for 4 years now or so, since 2018, 2019, from what's being talked about. And according to Sony, they give us a little indication as to what it is, saying, I'm excited to announce that we've expanded our relationship with Firewalk Studios and are thrilled to welcome them to PlayStation Studios. Firewalk is home to a remarkably talented team of creatives who have launched some of gaming's most celebrated experiences. And they're already hard at work on their first original AAA multiplayer game for PlayStation. Also discussing the fact that they will be putting out a live service title, as you would expect, because that's the big thing Sony is going towards right now. And I think a lot of the studio acquisitions that we're seeing on this scale, like this and Haven as an example, you could technically even roll in the mobile studio that they picked up as like live service experiences that they are building. I think even Deviation, while that's not been acquired yet, I feel like they're also working on a live service experience. But this one in particular is interesting because, again, they haven't released a game, and Sony did that with Haven, which they kind of discussed the idea of them having things on the development tool side and logistics, be able to bring people together remotely through cloud computing and stuff. There's a lot of roundabout discussion as to why they picked up Haven, but this is pretty clear. Hey, they have a multiplayer AAA experience, and we think it's going to be good. I mean, you put your money where your mouth is, and that's what they're doing here. But the studio is made up of leadership and veterans from like different studios that have done Call of Duty, Halo, Bungie. So they have a lot of experience, and that tells me that this is most likely going to be something that might be, I guess it could be military, or who knows, maybe more in the fantasy realm, but probably first-person shooter. And Sony is looking for that Call of Duty replacement. In their mind, why not just pick up the studio, see if we can help them even along here, build out a really good live service game, and to be honest, support it for 10 plus years and make another Destiny, but more on the first party side that's within that PlayStation Studios family. But now all eyes, I'm sure, on that PlayStation showcase that's currently rumored for the month of May, just ahead of when E3 would have happened. And I figure Firewalk, their game, will be there alongside of probably a bunch of other live service games, because while we're hearing about Sony doing 10 or so of these things, we're kind of waiting to see exactly what they have in store for us outside of The Last of Us, and The Last of Us, like the factions multiplayer, and maybe things like Gran Turismo. I guess that kind of counts as a live service experience. But basically, they have a bunch to show us, and I'm curious exactly what they have up their sleeves for things like Deviations and Firewalk, which I guess we'll find out here in a couple of months. Next up, let's talk about that Street Fighter 6 showcase that happened yesterday. It was like 40 minutes or so, and there was a lot packed in there, and certainly a lot of stuff that I wasn't expecting, because I'm picturing Street Fighter 6, and while they talked about the World Tour mode, I did not think they would be going all out to create what kind of looks like a single-player action RPG, and I mean, really, really going in with some of these RPG elements. But you can see some of the showcase here as they discussed a lot about this single-player mode that it kind of looked like a light Yakuza game almost, but what's really cool is you do get to create your own character from, with the limited bits they showed, seemed like a pretty robust character creator engine, so that's kind of neat. And you'll be able to take your avatar around different parts of the world, even through different cities and locations, and meet up with some of the legendary characters from Street Fighter, see them as your masters, learn some of their fighting styles, their special moves, earn experience from battles where you just kind of walk around in the town in different streets and just walk up and challenge them. So fights just breaking out all over the place there. But I do like the idea of going into the single player and actually going for it, not phoning something in and it's like, hey, you have this 5 or 6 hour experience. This looks like it could be its own entire game, even a spin-off. So having that attached after the very light amount of content, we'll say, that was shown when Street Fighter V was first coming out, and then people thought, oh, there's probably something, and there's not. There's just not a lot of content there. This looks like they went above and beyond, realizing that Street Fighter V underdelivered. Now, on top of World Tour, they did discuss Battle Hub, where you can take your custom avatar and fight against other people online, but also it kind of just looks like a community area, and they showed off cosmetics clearly, because they're going to be, I'm sure, selling plenty of those. But they showed off like arcade cabinets with the original Street Fighter 2. I think it was like Commando was next to it. So it seems like a place you can go and I guess just hang out with other people. I guess talk back and forth with them and just play games that aren't just Street Fighter, or even challenge them to fights and stuff and show off different builds you have. So it does look like they really thought about how you can go out there and interact with other people in the world of Street Fighter 6. And clearly, if you just want to play Street Fighter like we've always done, but with the newer characters that they've brought in for Street Fighter 6, you can still do all of that. It just really looks like they thought about the single player mode a bit more in depth than any of us were really expecting. But certainly the most exciting part about all of this is Capcom did indeed have a demo ready to go, and it was available immediately. Like before the showcase had completely ended, it was up on the PlayStation Store. Now, it is available as like a 1 week timed exclusive thing on PlayStation. So that's PS5 and PS4 currently have access to it, whereas Xbox and PC will gain access on April 26th. So there you go, Sony, still trying to align the PlayStation brand with Street Fighter by releasing the demo a week early. But still, it's cool to have a demo out there right away, and it is a way for you to get your custom character all set up in World Tour and just kind of take that for a test drive, really, in the early stages of it. But I gotta say, I'm not a big fighting game person. However, I'm interested in Street Fighter 6, and it is coming out June 2nd, so we're not too far off. Definitely exciting stuff there for Street Fighter fans. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some gameplay footage that was shared that went viral online because it looks a little too realistic. And you can see some of that footage here right from the get-go of this trailer. People thought it was a hoax. Like, they were just being shown live footage of somebody entering a building through their body camera. But no, this game is called Unrecorded. It's a single-player FPS that tells the story of a tactical police officer from the perspective of his body camera. As you work to solve a complex case, you'll need to use your tactical and detective skills to succeed. And you could probably see right off the bat, the gameplay footage, it definitely blurs the lines between real life and just what you would normally expect to see in a game, to the point where they had to make a post over on Steam yesterday. Just, is this a scam or real footage? And they said, oh, no, this is built on Unreal Engine 5. It's not a VR game. This is all controlled with keyboard and mouse. Apparently they have some sort of like first-person shooter movement that is unique to this that they've created. So it kind of has that more realistic movement to the gun and the sway and all of this. But releasing and timing, we don't know. It's to be announced. Basically, when it's done, it's done. But it seems like this was a very early announcement for it. So I gotta say, this is probably one of those moments where I looked at it and I said, oh, wow, that looks next gen, right? So I don't know if it'll look like that or react that way or anything when the full game comes out, if it comes out, although they seem pretty straightforward about it not being smoke and mirrors. This is really what it would look like, you know, when it gets out there, and it's not on rails or anything like that, even though you saw kind of the choices come up when you got to the person inside the building. Apparently it was all free movement and they can just kind of walk around as they would like. But yes, something certainly to keep an eye on here with Unrecorded, and kind of to see how much longer it takes for it to come out and if it actually looks that good when it does. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, will Zelda Tears of the Kingdom outsell Breath of the Wild lifetime sales? 61% say yes, 39% say no. So I'm pretty confident that Tears of the Kingdom, when it comes out, will completely accelerate past what Breath of the Wild was able to sell when it first came out. And yeah, a lot of that has to do with the install size right now, the Switch being significantly higher. Obviously, when Breath of the Wild came out, there were no Switches on the market. You bought a Switch to get Breath of the Wild. And in some ways, the attach rate was ridiculous because it was like 120% or something for the game, because people were just buying Breath of the Wild and then hoping to get a Switch later on. I think we will see Tears of the Kingdom eventually move past it if Nintendo goes the route of, we're also going to support this game on our next platform with a patch of some kind, so you get better frame rate or resolution, and they just sell Tears of the Kingdom throughout that generation. Or who knows, maybe they do Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Plus and just re-release it as a new game. That would still kind of count, right? It's like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It just keeps going. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from the backlog, saying, I can't explain just how interested I am to learn about Nintendo's second half of 2023. Them releasing Fire Emblem Engage Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC this early means they must have some big plans to keep Q3 and Q4 interesting for the Switch to hit their lofty sales expectations. Well, in Q3, well, really to close out, for this year specifically to close out, Q3, Q4. Q3 has Pikmin in it, and Q4, they could potentially drop Metroid Prime 4 in there. I mean, we just had Metroid Prime Remastered. Maybe they're thinking, hey, we have this out there, and then we'll close out the year with the holiday for our big Metroid Prime 4 release. Or, I mean, they could pull from a number of things. They could go the route of just doing ports of older games, like we said, F-Zero GX, that could legitimately be a thing. You could have that Wind Waker Twilight Princess bundle finally come to fruition. There's a lot of possibilities here, but I would like to see them close out the year with something big, a 3D Mario or a Metroid Prime 4. That'd be pretty awesome to have in the same year as Tears of the Kingdom. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today, we're Sony moving to acquire Firewalk Studios, despite them not having released a game before this? And then also, what about Street Fighter 6? Did you get a chance to check out the demo, and what do you think about World Tour mode? And then Unrecorded, do you think that footage was real, and were you surprised thinking, wait a minute, is that a game or is that real life? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.